I thought my girlfriend was cheating when I found a second phone hidden in the back of her closet. Looking back, I wish cheating was all it had been. My girlfriend Emily and I had been together for almost 3 years. We weren't one of those couples who posted each other constantly online or bragged about how perfect our relationship was. We were just comfortable. The kind of comfortable where you know how the other person takes their coffee. The kind where you can sit in the same room for an hour without talking and it doesn't feel awkward. Emily was an elementary school teacher. I worked IT support for a medical company. Our lives were boring in the best possible way. At least that's what I thought. Everything started on a Saturday afternoon while we were cleaning the apartment. Emily had gone to the grocery store and I was trying to reorganize our bedroom closet. That's when I found the phone. It was hidden behind a stack of old shoe boxes on the top shelf. At first I assumed it was an old device she forgot about. But when I picked it up, the screen lit up. The battery was almost full. And it had recent notifications. I remember staring at it for several seconds. My stomach immediately dropped. I wish I could say I reacted rationally. I didn't. My brain jumped straight to one conclusion. She's cheating. I put the phone back exactly where I found it before Emily got home. For the rest of the evening I barely listened to anything she said. I kept watching her. Studying her. Looking for signs that suddenly seemed obvious. Every late night. Every cancelled plan. Every time she'd stepped into another room to answer a call. Suddenly everything looked suspicious. For the next week I couldn't stop thinking about it. I told myself I wouldn't snoop. Then one night Emily fell asleep on the couch while we were watching a movie. I found myself standing in front of the closet again. 5 minutes later I was holding the phone. This time I turned it on. The passcode screen appeared. I tried her birthday. Wrong. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. I tried a few other obvious choices. Nothing. Then I noticed something strange. The lock screen wallpaper wasn't a photo. It was a handwritten note. The note said, "If you're reading this, you're not supposed to know yet." My heart immediately started pounding. People hiding affairs don't usually leave messages like that. At least I didn't think they did. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. The next day I started paying closer attention. Emily seemed completely normal. Maybe too normal. That should have been my first clue. Instead, I convinced myself it was proof she was hiding something. Over the next month I became obsessed. I hate admitting that. But it's true. I started checking our phone bill. I looked through social media. I searched for anything that would confirm what I already believed. Instead, I found absolutely nothing. No suspicious messages. No strange contacts. No hidden accounts. Nothing. Meanwhile the second phone remained hidden in the same place. Always charged. Always active. Always waiting. One afternoon Emily came home from work looking exhausted. I asked if everything was okay. She said she'd had a difficult day with one of her students. Then she went straight into the bedroom and closed the door. A few minutes later I heard her crying. When I opened the door she quickly wiped her eyes and told me she was fine. She wasn't. But she refused to talk about it. That night I barely slept. The next morning I did something I'm not proud of. I followed her. She left work at her normal time. Instead of driving home, she went across town to a small cemetery. I parked several rows away and watched. Emily walked to a grave. Then she sat down beside it. And stayed there for almost an hour. Alone. When she finally left, I waited until she was gone before approaching. The grave belonged to a girl named Sophie. The date on the headstone stopped me cold. Sophie had died 11 years earlier. She would have been 12 years old. I stood there staring at the headstone for what felt like forever. I had never heard Emily mention Sophie. Not once. Not in 3 years. That night I confronted her. Not about the grave. About the phone. I told her I knew it existed. I told her I had found it. And I told her I wanted the truth. I've never seen someone's face lose color so quickly. For a moment I honestly thought she might faint. Then she sat down. And started crying. Real crying. The kind you can't fake. Immediately I felt sick. Because suddenly I knew. This wasn't cheating. This was something else. Something much worse. After several minutes she finally spoke. Sophie was her younger sister. 11 years ago, Sophie disappeared while walking home from school. For 3 days nobody knew where she was. The entire town searched for her. Volunteers searched. Police searched. Her family searched. Then they found her. Emily stopped talking for a moment. She couldn't even look at me. When she finally continued, her voice barely rose above a whisper. The man responsible had been arrested. But none of that changed what happened. Their family never recovered. Her parents divorced. Everyone drifted apart. And eventually nobody talked about Sophie anymore. Nobody except Emily. She said forgetting felt worse than grieving. And that's when she finally explained the second phone. The second phone wasn't a secret relationship. It wasn't a burner phone. It wasn't evidence of an affair. For years, Emily had been recording messages to her sister. Every birthday. Every Christmas. Every major life event. Every accomplishment. Every heartbreak. Every promotion. Everything. The second phone contained more than a decade of voice recordings. Thousands of them. It was the only place she felt comfortable talking about Sophie. She never told anyone about it. Not her friends. Not her family. Not even me. Because she was terrified people would think she was broken. Then she handed me the phone. The passcode was Sophie's birthday. When it unlocked, I saw hundreds of recordings. The oldest one was over 10 years old. The newest had been recorded only a few days earlier. Emily told me I could listen if I wanted. So I did. The first recording was only 30 seconds long. Emily sounded like a child. She was crying. She kept saying she missed her sister. Then another recording played. And another. And another. I sat there for hours. Listening to Emily grow up through those recordings. Listening to years of grief. Years of guilt. Years of loneliness. Years of love. Some recordings were heartbreaking. Some were funny. Some were just Emily talking about her day. Like Sophie was still there listening. The more I listened, the worse I felt. Because while Emily had been carrying all of this pain alone, I had spent months convincing myself she was cheating on me. That conversation changed everything between us. Not because it fixed her grief. Nothing could do that. But because it finally removed the wall she had built around it. After that night, she started talking about Sophie more often. Not constantly. Just enough. Little stories. Memories from childhood. The kind of things she'd spent years keeping locked away. I learned Sophie loved drawing. I learned she hated vegetables. I learned she wanted to be a veterinarian. For the first time, Sophie stopped being a tragedy. She became a person. And the more Emily talked about her, the more I realized how much she had been carrying alone. The secret phone didn't disappear. Emily still used it. But she stopped hiding it. Sometimes she'd tell me when she recorded a message. Sometimes she'd even let me listen afterward. A few months later, on Sophie's birthday, Emily asked if I wanted to visit the cemetery with her. It was the first time she'd ever invited anyone. We brought flowers. We sat there for almost an hour. Mostly talking. Mostly remembering stories I'd never heard before. At one point Emily smiled and said, "I think Sophie would have liked you." I don't know why, but that hit me harder than anything else. Because for the first time, it felt like I wasn't standing outside that part of her life anymore. I was finally part of it. And that's when I realized something. For months I had been terrified that Emily was hiding another relationship. The truth was that she had been protecting a relationship she was afraid to lose. Even if that relationship only existed in memories. That was almost 2 years ago. The phone still exists. Emily still records messages sometimes. Not as often as she used to. But she still does. The difference now is that she doesn't hide it anymore. Sometimes she'll tell me about a recording afterward. Sometimes she'll even play a piece of one for me. And every year on Sophie's birthday, we visit the cemetery together. What started as suspicion ended up becoming one of the most important moments of our relationship. Not because I uncovered a secret. But because I finally understood something. The people we love aren't just the version of themselves we see every day. They're also made up of old memories. Old pain. Old fears. Entire chapters of their lives that existed long before we arrived. I spent months convincing myself that a second phone meant another man. Another relationship. Another life. The reality was so much different. The phone wasn't proof of betrayal. It was proof of love. A love that never really had a chance to say goodbye. Sometimes I still think about the day I found it. How quickly I jumped to conclusions. How sure I was that I knew what was happening. And honestly, I feel ashamed of it. Because while I was building a case against Emily in my head, she was carrying a loss that most people couldn't imagine. A loss she had been carrying almost completely alone. A few weeks ago I asked Emily if she regretted keeping the phone a secret. She thought about it for a while. Then she smiled. A real smile. And she said, "No." I asked why. She looked down at the phone sitting on our kitchen table. Then she said, "Because if I hadn't, you never would have learned how much Sophie meant to me." I didn't know what to say after that. So I just squeezed her hand. And for a while we sat there in silence. The comfortable kind. The kind we had before all of this started. The kind where you don't need words. Sometimes people ask what the biggest mistake you can make in a relationship is. Most people say lying. Some say cheating. Some say not communicating. For me, it's assuming you know the whole story. Because sometimes the truth isn't what you fear. Sometimes it's something far more human. I thought I found evidence that my girlfriend was cheating. Instead, I found proof that grief can last a lifetime. And proof that love can too.